Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am your host RP, the guy with a very bad back, and I have finally at the very tail end of 2024 managed to get my hands on the 2024 CFMoto 450MT. I know I am very late to the game with this particular review, but this lets me talk about some points that several other creators that had a lot earlier access to the bike may have forgotten or missed out on. So let's go. Let's open the review as usual by talking about performance. I'll preface this by mentioning I didn't exactly bother with getting permission to take the 450MT off-road, what with the stock 80/20 CST tyres being replaced with street-focused pedal axles, and there already being a plethora of content creators heaping praise and showing off its capability off-road. So I'll be very much focusing on answering the road-focused questions instead. You get a 449cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine with a 270-degree crank, putting out 44 horsepower at 8,500 RPM. The engine itself has an incredible amount of pull off the line, but around the 5,000 RPM mark, it starts to peter out and feel anemic until it begins to pull incredibly hard again around 8,000 RPM. Now, most people would barely notice it unless they are being an anal nitpick lugging the bike around in third gear like I did, because the 450MT hides it very well with an incredibly short final gearing ratio of 3.36 and an overall close ratio 6-speed transmission that has you banging through the gears quickly, that gives this illusion of a very responsive and torquey engine. However, for those of you who have road trips in mind before deciding to get this bike, have no fear. The engine runs like a charm and can cruise comfortably at 120 km per hour without even touching red line at 6th gear. You also get a 41mm KYB inverted fork, compression and rebound adjustable with 200mm of travel, and a fully adjustable KYB monoshock at the rear with 200mm of travel as well. Personally, I am glad that it is adjustable because the factory settings are a tiny bit oversprung and bouncy for my 77kg body. Wheels are 21 inches up front and 18 inches at the rear with tubeless spoked rims, which are great for low maintenance road trips and allowing you to fit a wide plethora of dual sport or dirt tires if you so wish. The nearly 190kg wet weight of the bike is carried pretty much in the middle and forward of the bike. So for an adventure motorcycle of this weight class, the 450MT actually had slightly better than average handling and responsiveness. Ground clearance was around 220mm give or take, which is a lot to have for your typical ADV motorcycle. So there is really no problem clearing nearly any typical obstacle if need be. The bike was also getting me between 22.7 km per litre during city riding and 26.3 km per litre riding exclusively highways, meaning with the 17.5 litre fuel tank, you can expect a range of between 397 to 460 km if you run the 450MT bone dry. Let's go through some of the notable auxiliary features the 450MT comes with, starting with the fact it comes with ABS front and rear, with the rear being switchable. The 450MT also sports a basic traction control as well. Both the rear ABS and traction control can be individually switched off in the menu settings or turned off together by holding down a single dedicated button. Unfortunately, the 450MT doesn't get any ride modes like the Himalayan, so you'll have to make do with the power curves off-road as is and just get used to it. The 5-inch TFT display is also very readable in any lighting condition and displays the relevant information in a neat arrangement in both the pre-included themes. There is very little in the way of unnecessary visual clutter on the dash, which is beautiful. The menus are also intuitive and not overburdened with excessive amounts of settings buried under even more submenus. There is smartphone connectivity as well. Most of the features are pretty typical bread and butter that every other app has, but it's a non-issue for me personally since I don't like app connectivity anyway, regardless of vehicle, because it drains my phone's battery. You technically also get a pair of stock handguards, different from the ones you see in my video. They aren't reinforced, they are plastic. They are really only good for keeping rain and roost off your hands. Not so much for keeping your fingers intact when you're meeting Mr. Tree out for Saturday afternoon drinks and greet him with a fist bump. The 450MT also has a bash plate, but it's really long stretch to call it a bash plate. It's really thin. It'll save your engine case from the stray pebble kicked up by your front tire and not much else. I think the real standout feature is the fact that you get a pair of really big, solid foldable mirrors. Anyone that wants to go off-road will appreciate having these. Heck, even I appreciated having these when I needed to lane split in traffic. This is a good, solid 50 to 60 bucks you don't have to spend replacing stock mirrors there. Lastly, you get a manually adjustable windshield. It honestly could probably do with a bit more travel to cover a wider range of rider heights, but it is already better than what most ADV bikes in this displacement category can offer, so I'm pretty satisfied. Also, I'd like to note that access to basic maintenance items are incredibly easy to reach under the seat. The battery, airbox and fuse box are all within easy reach and spaced far apart even for fat fingers to get into. You know guys, when I took the bike from our friends at Yuheng, the brand manager told me y'all wanted to know how it feels on long road trips. It was apparently the #1 question unanswered by most of the content creators you've watched. Well, I got you fam. I spent nearly 2 hours riding non-stop round and round Singapore in a mind-numbing loop. So here goes. The engine was really smooth, like butter smooth. My feet weren't numb even though I had to leave without the rubber bunks on the foot pegs because somebody lost it, and my hands barely tingled at the end of the ride. The stock seat itself was wide and soft enough. Just occasionally shifting my bum was enough to be free from any pain. Upper arms had plenty of space to be stretched into a comfortable angle without affecting control, and my posture was nice and upright. The windshield at its highest position, while it could have been bigger, did a splendid job in keeping most of the wind and rain off my face and chest, with the fairings doing a solid job for my legs as well. The stock brake and clutch levers were also very responsive and adjustable to my finger length. As far as upper body comfort was concerned, the 450MT was phenomenal. However, with a seat height of 800mm stock, even though I could flat foot the bike on both sides considering I am 177cm tall, it was just way too short and cramped for my legs, and I had sore knees after. They technically advertised the 450MT as adjustable to 820mm, so I tried to look for a way to raise the seat height. You want to know where the height setting is located? Yeah, it's here, right underneath the rear shock. The position was pretty obtuse compared to the way the Himalayan did things, whatever. I spent a couple of minutes tapping and getting the bolt out, but after that, even with the main stand to help keep the weight off the swing arm, I had trouble holding the linkage up and putting the bolt back in all by myself. I gave up when my slip disc started acting up again. Moral of the story is, I probably need to make more friends. It is at that point when I sat there looking at the bike and I realized I spent that effort for nothing, because it would have raised the seat height relative to the ground, but not relative to the pegs. Wow, I felt like an idiot. Unless you're a proud short king, just get the optional tall seat, guys. It's only $100 odd for an additional 50mm of seat height. Other than that, all I can say is the bike's weight distribution doesn't make it very difficult to push around for the average male, and while it may be a pretty wide machine, it's not that hard to squeeze between lanes either. The looks of the bike itself, to be honest, doesn't stand out much to me. It feels like your typical Chinese auto manufacturer's idea of a modern image. The styling could easily be passed off as sharing the same design team as the ones that make BYD or Geely cars. There isn't a real visual brand identity that ties it with the rest of CFMoto's lineup, which, to be honest, is something of a trend across the board. Like, personally, I don't hate it, but I can't say there's anything about it that turns me on either. There's a lot of hard edges to the look. The two color schemes provided are well coordinated but incredibly corporate and sterile. Placement of everything on the bike is neat, and the controls are pretty accessible despite how big the hand clusters are. The build quality of the plastics is great. None of the buttons had loosely wiggling parts. There is a satisfyingly solid resistance to button presses that I appreciate. However, the welds, they are kinda ugly, to be honest. Too bad they really wanted to showcase the trellis subframe and it exposes most of it. The headlights for the discerning seem to be slightly plagiarized from the 2016 Honda Grom, but I bet most people wouldn't notice the similarities considering it only ran for a single year and never came back. Visually, it just didn't speak to me, but the real kicker is when you turn on the engine. Again, CFMoto has delivered in the auditory department. The 270-degree crank parallel twin gives a solid punching exhaust note with clear, distinct growling notes. Personally, my video recording might not really do the exhaust sound justice, but here's a sample. The 2024 CFMoto 450MT comes in at a pretty reasonable $13,900 in Singapore just for the machine. I'm under no illusion that you are getting a bike with the most meticulous build quality or a great power to weight ratio, but it certainly will be capable of any typical street and light off-roading applications the average hobbyist rider is willing or capable of, and still remain affordable and accessible to most people. I know Chris Northover and many other content creators have sung the 450MT's praises as far as off-road capabilities are concerned, and I don't need to add on to that. But I'll probably be one of the few to break the mold and say I like it more for its touring capabilities. For example, the tubeless rims and adjustable windshield heaped onto the 450MT are far more beneficial for long distance road riding, but don't really matter to someone who just uses it as a way to move from trailhead to trailhead. And the lack of a stock center stand wouldn't matter much to road riders as much as the guy that needs to change his tubes by himself in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Personally, the 450MT is ideally for someone who wants a bike capable of comfortably meeting minimum highway speeds, doesn't feel intimidating to handle, and is still capable of pulling off the main road to a slightly graded kampong or campsite path, all while not breaking the bank for all of you guys my age, or if you're at an age where health is a concern, breaking your back.
Now, I hope you enjoyed this video and that it would have made some points across to help you actually identify whether the CFMoto 450MT is suitable for your use case. And if you enjoyed this video, do remember to give me a like, subscribe, visit the links down in my description below if you would like to support this channel, and I will see you next time. Peace out. Bye bye.